All right, so I'm making this into a podcast. I'm going to be doing these Instagram lives, and I'm just going to kind of riff and talk about what's really on my mind, what I think might be helpful, and it's called Breakthrough. So this is episode 2. If you didn't catch episode 1, it's on YouTube, and you can go and you can check it out, and you can see a little bit of the clips from my reels. So today I shaved, I got the mustache, I'm into really expressing myself today, which is fun, which is great. And so today I want to talk a little bit about surrender. What is proper surrender? What is surrender in the correct context? Right? What is surrender in the correct context? Because everybody says to surrender, but nobody knows when or how or what. And for me, surrender all comes down to one key thing. Surrender is that point that you get where you relinquish anything outside of your sphere of influence. So you never surrender the day, you surrender the future. Today, you take absolute and full control of what you can control. You take control over your character, you take control over how you treat people, you take control over doing the things that are good for you, you take control over everything that you possibly can be to feel the best that you can today, to move yourself forward today, and then you surrender the rest. You surrender everything that is not within side of your control. So the question is, what is the optimal way to kind of take control in our lives? Because sometimes we feel powerless. We feel like we have no sense of control over other people, over situations, over what's going on. And the number one thing that has helped me in my life comes down to making clear contracts. Making clear contracts. Because when you make everything in life is a contract, right? Me talking to you right now is a contract. I'm going to be talking, you're going to be making comments, you're going to be participating in this conversation and receiving these knowledges, and this is our contract, right? And the contract is you can get off whenever you want, you can sign on whenever you want. There's no bad beef because I didn't say you have to stay on or you have to pay for this or any of these things. There's no contract. Now, we forget that, with our friends and our family, we don't have any contracts with people. And contract sounds like something that's very businessy, right? It's something that people are really turned off by, like, oh, you're gonna hold me to a contract? That sounds so formal. Well, the thing is, it doesn't have to be formal. It can be something that actually keeps everybody safe, because in order to truly play, any game actually has rules, right? Any fun game has some rules. Even improv has rules. The rules are, you gotta yes and everybody, you gotta make something up on the spot, you gotta live freely, loosely, you gotta create a character, you gotta find a game. These are all the rules of improv, something that appears to have no rules at all. In order to have magic happen, you have to have some rules. And contracts are the rules of every interaction. If you think about it, every interaction you have with a person, whether it's your relationship, your family, your business, whatever, it's kind of a game. You two are playing a game. You're acting out a scene. And in order to act out the scene in a way that it benefits both parties equally, where everybody is happy and nobody is walked all over, you need to have clear contracts. And so if there is something that you want, you need to say, hey, this is what I need, and if it doesn't happen, this is what happens. And the thing that you have, the most valuable asset that you have, and the thing that you should be keeping as valuable as possible, as sacred as possible, is your presence. Because your presence is your time, and your time, I don't even need to say it, your time is so valuable. So if somebody so Tyler says he likes my shirt a lot, because yesterday I was so excited to make this podcast I didn't even bother wearing a shirt. But so what I'm saying is, if someone isn't going to live by the standards that you need, right, in your life, if someone isn't going to abide by the rules that you need to feel safe, that you need to be productive, that you need to pursue your highest mission, that you need to be just a good human being, then they lose access to your presence. Now, something that my beautiful partner says, she says, My love is unconditional, but my presence is not. I'm going to say that again. My love is unconditional, but my presence is not. And that's a really powerful thing when you get down to it. You can love somebody unconditionally and absolutely, but that does not mean that you have to spend time with them. Sometimes the most loving thing to do, and I know I talked about love yesterday, is to not spend time with them when they are doing things that don't meet the standard of what you need in your presence, right? Because that's what it's all about. When you have a standard of what your presence requires, you raise the standard for everyone. You give people a gift when you have a standard that people have to meet in order to be in your presence, right? You have to be, in order to be in my presence, you have to be kind. You have to be aware of your judgments, and when you are a little over-judgmental, recognize that. You need to value yourself and take care of yourself. I'm not going to tolerate any self-pity party. You got to be kind to others, right? And you have to know what it is that what you really just don't want to tolerate in your presence. And just because somebody does something that you don't really tolerate in your presence does not mean by any means that you should judge them. It just means that you don't want that in your life. You don't want that to be present in your presence, and so you're going to let it go. You're going to let it go. And so when it comes to surrender, right? You take care of the things that are in your circle of influence, and you surrender everything that's not. And when I say surrender, that doesn't mean just like stop doing things about it and worrying about it, because that's what people often do. They're like, I'm surrendered, but deep down they're like, oh, I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think that's going to happen. How can I trust this? How can I trust that? I'm surrendered. And they're just shaking in their boots. And that's not surrender. And so how do you get to surrender from, consciously being like, I know I need to let this go, but I just can't. So what is the universe calling you to do? It's calling you to face your fear. What are you really afraid of in that moment? You're afraid that it's not going to work out. You're afraid that they're going to be gone forever. You're afraid that nobody will ever like you. You're afraid that maybe you'll never be successful. You're afraid of all of these different things. So once you identify what you're afraid of, you got to have the courage to go in and face it. Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to face our fears. We're here to look at the most terrifying thing in the eye and say, I see you. I see you. And if that happens, I trust that I'm okay. And I know that something better is probably going to happen. And if I can't accept the fact that that thing that I'm afraid of could be okay if it happened, if I can't face that fear, it's going to come right into my existence. Because obviously I need to learn the lesson from that fear. So if you can face the fear, then you don't need to learn the lesson from the fear. And if you don't need to learn the lesson from the fear, you don't need to experience the fear. It's like the analogy that I always love to use, and you've probably heard me say it before. It's not mine. I forget where it comes from. Colin Kurtz is the one that told it to me, and it's be the buffalo, right? So the buffalo is this amazing creature that when a storm starts to roll in with thunder and lightning and what does the buffalo do? Does it run away from the storm? Does it just sit there and graze? No. It runs straight into the storm. Why? Why would you go straight into the storm? Because that's how it's going to be over quicker. You're going to experience less of the storm if you run straight into what you're afraid of. If you just run straight into the storm, guess what? You might get there, get a little raindrop, and then you'll be done. If you run away from the storm will always be chasing you. If you just sit there, you'll endure the storm, and this too shall pass, and that's okay. But I highly suggest running into the storm. Now, what's the difference between overcompensating for your fear and having a healthy relationship with your fear? Well, that's up to you to decide. And what I've heard in the book, The Way of the Superior Man, a quote that I really like is kiss the edge of your fear, right? Kiss the edge. So just constantly be getting close enough and sinking into it that it feels like you're kissing all of your wildest fears. All of them. And when you're there, that's where the real growth is happening, because you're not going overboard, and at the same time you know that you are making incredible progress. Let me see if I turn this off, if that light... It's still very bright out here. The light totally changed. But that's what you got to do. You got to kiss your fear. Kiss the edge of your comfort zone. So just be slightly uncomfortable. Not so uncomfortable that you freak out and have a mental breakdown and end up on the ground. Just uncomfortable enough that you know that you're going to be okay, and it's uncomfortable, and push yourself forward. Right? If you want to get up on stage, you don't need to get a crowd of 1 million people and embarrass yourself. You should just get a crowd of 10 people. And get up there, and you feel slightly uncomfortable, and you say what you have to say. Maybe you fail, and you just kiss the edge of your fear. And it's a beautiful thing, because we need to grow. Time is of the essence. And it kills me when I waste time. When I realize, like, oh man, I just wasted so much time. And the number one thing that's wasting our time is this thing that you're probably watching me on right now. And it's a killer. It is an absolute killer of creation. I noticed it, that when I woke up in the morning and I got sucked into watching Instagram, I didn't create anything. Nothing. Nada. In order to create, I needed to drop my phone, create everything, do all my meditation, prioritize myself, and from there, I was able to move in and go forward. And so, anyway, back to the contract. So what do we focus on today is we focus on surrender, facing your fear, and having clear contracts with people. And clear contracts are everything. And the thing is, you might not think that you're making contracts, but you are making contracts all the time. But the thing is, you might be making contracts that are covert contracts. Now, what do I mean by covert contracts? Well, covert contracts are contracts that one person has made and they didn't tell the other person about it. For example, I'm gonna do the dishes, and because I did the dishes, they should do the dishes tomorrow. Did I tell them they should do the dishes tomorrow? No. And then what happens? Tomorrow, they don't do the dishes because I didn't tell them to do the dishes. And guess what? I'm upset. I do the dishes every day, and you can't think to do the dishes. When it's your turn to do the dishes, they're like, I didn't know we were taking turns. I just thought you liked doing the dishes, right? You gotta be clear. It's like, hey, I like doing the dishes tonight, but it would be really great if you did the dishes tomorrow night, because I'm not gonna have time, and I really like it when the dishes are done. So the buffalo surrenders to the storm. Well, the buffalo does everything that it can to get through the storm, and then when it's done everything that it can, it lets go. And that's what we're doing here. We are doing everything that we possibly can, and then we're letting go. And the key is knowing what you can do and what you can't do. It's like the old adage. It's one of my favorite ones. If you can't do anything about it, don't worry about it, because you can't do anything about it. If you can do something about it, don't worry about it, because you can do something about it. Right? So there's no reason to worry. We're only worrying about things that are out of our control. And so if you're worrying, you're focusing on things that you can't do anything about, because anything you can do something about, you should just go ahead and do it, or plan to do it. Right? Of make a plan in order to do it. And if you make a plan in order to do it and you still feel anxious, it's because you don't trust yourself. Because you don't follow through on your plans. How do you trust yourself more? You keep small promises to yourself over and over and over again, and that builds something that I like to call confidence. And it's huge. And so what is the number one promise we can make to ourselves that will increase our confidence at the fastest speed? Well, what I say it is doing affirmations in the mirror. It is a double whammy. And yes, worry is praying for something that you don't want. Thank you, Sandra. That is the truth. I like having a little thing here to hit. Makes me feel good. But anyway, affirmations, mirror work is absolutely incredible. It's something that has changed my life multiple times when I have started to go downhill. When I have become unaware of my thoughts, let the inner critic take over, and sabotage everything that is going on in my life, just psychologically ripping everything apart as it analyzes to find what's wrong. If you're constantly asking yourself the question, what's wrong with me, you are going to find it. So if you're going to start trying to grow and asking yourself the question, how can I grow? You should start telling yourself how you do want to grow. And the best way to do that is in the mirror, is to look at yourself and say, I am confident. Like really say it. I am confident, not I'm confident. No. I am confident. I trust myself. I love myself. I am loving. I am kind. I am inspirational. I am a man of integrity. I am lovable. I am safe. I am capable. And really get into it and feel it in your body, because when you start seeing yourself, saying those words and feeling those things, you make a direct association and correlation that links up into your brain that makes you become that character. Because all you are is a character, right? Because who you really are is an essence. You are an essence that shines through no matter what story you put on. But we put on all these stories and all these characteristics, and those things then are what we allow our essence to shine through. And these are things that we choose, and these are what we call our personality, or our personal reality, our personality, right? And that's the thing that we interact with the world with a lot of the time. And when we get to choose those stories that are in the greatest alignment with our essence, life becomes flow. Life becomes effortless. And when we choose stories that are not in alignment with our essence, we get tired of playing out those roles, and we become depressed because we need deep rest, right? So we want to find stories that are really aligned with our essence. And how do we do that? Trial and error. Write down some things that you would really like to be and start telling yourself that story about yourself into the mirror, and let it go and see what happens. See how you feel. And if it feels too hard to be that all the time, drop it, because that's not in alignment with the essence of who you really are. It's just not. So then you're going to want to pick something that is. You're going to want to pick something that is in alignment with your essence. But I'll tell you, something that is in alignment with everyone's essence is joy, is love, is gratitude, is intelligence, is creativity. All of these things are in alignment with your essence, is confidence, right? These are not unique to any individual. These are all things that can be uniquely expressed through an individual. It's like someone doesn't have the trademark on joy. Someone doesn't have the trademark on compassion. You can be compassionate. You can be loving. You can be kind, and in your own fun way. You can just do it. You can just be it. So try the mirror work. It's absolutely incredible. And it will change your life to just realize all of the stories that you were telling yourself that aren't helpful, and start telling yourself new stories for fun, or let go of all the stories altogether if you want, and just be. You could just totally be and refresh. And sometimes that's what we need to do. We need to be absolutely and completely. We need to do nothing and be everything. And then after we do nothing and be everything, we got to balance it out, and we got to do. We got to do, right? We got to do. Dooby dooba, do dooby do, right? But we got to be first before we can do. So if you're having a hard time emotionally right now, if something's really like getting at you, I'm going to tell you what I see in people. If you've been holding on to some sort of feeling for a really long time, if a thought pattern is plaguing you over and over again and you are in a constant loop of anger, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, what's happening is that you are holding on to the story and denying your feelings. You are afraid to feel the feelings, and you are justifying feeling just moderately upset, not moderately upset, but like fully upset with a story. You're like, I'm gonna hold on to this feeling because of this story. I'm gonna tell this story to everybody and they're gonna validate my feeling. And the thing is, I think on a subconscious level that if everybody validates my feeling, that then I'll feel better, but you won't. You're just gonna start to identify with it. And it's just gonna become part of who you are. And then you're gonna, that cut is gonna turn into a scar, right? If you hold on to the story too long, the cut of whatever hurt you experienced will turn into a scar and it'll be part of who you are. But in order to let it heal, we have to let go of the story, because the story is us just poking the wound over and over and over and over again. All right, let me say what I said again. Let me go over it again. When we get hurt, what we do is we hold on to the story of how we got hurt in order to get other people to validate our pain, our feelings, and we don't let the feelings have their full life because we need to hold on to them in order to tell the story to get the validation. And we think when we get the validation that we'll feel better, but we don't. We're actually making it worse, because the more we tell the story, it's poking the wound. And the more you poke it and pick at it and scratch at it, then you're going to get a scar. And when it scars, it becomes part of who you are and it's there forever. So the key to healing is to let go of the story and feel the feelings without adding to it. Because every time you then tell a story about the feeling, you add to the feeling, and so you can never get through this mountain because you're it's like continuously throwing a book on top of the books that you're reading. Every time you read a book, you throw another book on top. There's no need to do that, right? All right, so a story. Let me give an example of this concept. So in my life, I've had, somebody really significant to me die. I've had a lot of significant people to me die. And one of them I was really upset about because there were unresolved feelings. And there were all these stories that I was telling about this person and the thing and how I felt, and I thought I was like dealing with my grief well, and I'd realize I get really charged and I'd tell the story and someone would validate it. I'm like, yeah, now I'm working through it. I'm getting there. I'm expressing myself. And I realized the story doesn't get any less charged any time I tell it. Actually, it gets more charged every time I tell it. Actually, it's becoming part of who I am. And it's really bringing me down. It's really